We're going to look at what it means for two figures to be congruent, and then also what that tells us about the sides and angles. Two figures are congruent if and only if one can be obtained from the other by a sequence of rigid motions. The if and only if means that the converse is also true. Are these two triangles congruent? Well, the image is a reflection across the y-axis of the pre-image, so because we were able to find one or more rigid motions that mapped one image onto the other exactly, then we can assume that those two figures are congruent. A theorem that goes along with triangle congruence is that if two triangles are congruent, then corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent. So in this example, triangle ABC is congruent to DEF, and the order does matter. So this is also saying that angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to E, angle C is congruent to angle F, and then also BC, for example, is congruent to segment EF, and so on. Determine the length of DE. So DE is congruent to AB, and remember we can assume that because we're given that the two triangles are congruent. AB is 2.6 centimeters, which means DE is 2.6 centimeters. And we also want to find the measure of angle B. B is listed in the middle, so we need to look at angle E. Angle E is 65 degrees, so angle B is also going to be 65 degrees. The converse of that theorem is also true. If all corresponding sides and angles of two triangles are congruent, then that means that the two triangles must be congruent. Determine if the two triangles are congruent. If yes, give the proper congruent statement. We'll be able to prove that the two triangles are congruent if we can show that the corresponding sides are congruent and that the corresponding angles are congruent. Let's just name the first triangle JGH. Then it would have to be congruent to triangle, if J was listed first, J is 60 degrees, so M is the one here that's 60 degrees. And then G is listed, that's 30 degrees, so K would be next. And then we have H is a right angle, so that would go with L. But we don't know for sure that these two are congruent yet until we check the sides. Segment JG would have to be congruent to MK. JG is 2 meters and MK is 2 meters, so that works. GH has to be congruent to KL. GH is 1.7 meters and KL is 1.7 meters. And JH and ML need to be congruent. JH is 1 meter and ML is 1 meter. So those are congruent, which makes the triangles congruent.